Yay. Okay, I'm on mute. I'll sit and wait.
Everyone has a bright light inside of them that deserves to be seen by the world. That's why it's time to shine the light on the extraordinary who are accomplishing phenomenal things. This is the Shine Out Loud Show with Lillian Ogbogo.
Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever in the world you are. This is another episode of the Shine Out Loud Show with me, Lillian Ogbogo. Now it's that time again. We are coming up to summer, folks, in the UK, and I swear somebody switched off summer and took us back to winter because it's May and I have the heating on. Can somebody please tell me why? If you can, drop us a message. Let us know why I have my heating on. And if, I would like to find summer. If somebody can tell me where it is and, direct me, I will go fetch it. Now, tonight, aside from talking about the English weather, we're going to do what we do best. We are going to shine the light on the extraordinary. And tonight, we have Latoya Lovell, model, writer, producer, mother, all-round champion for mental health and speaker out on all things that needs to be spoken out, that needs to be shared, that needs to be looked at. She is writing stories that are powerful in itself, and it's about looking at us as a community and the topics that divide and how we can actually find common grounds. So join me and welcome my fantastic guest, Latoya Lovell. Hi, Latoya.
Hi, Lillian.
How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. Just enjoying another English summer day or spring day. When does summer actually start? But whenever it does, somebody please let me know.
Yeah, I let me know too. I'm looking for that as well.
So we are going to be talking today about all that you do. And, and it's so apt that we're speaking right now because we are in the mental health week. And
yes,
and one of your key core areas that you champion and talk about a lot is around the topic of depression.
Yeah, it is.
So when you think about it and knowing what you've gone through, do you think that there's enough conversation and support in the Black community regarding mental health?
I think there's an increase on it at the moment, but I still don't think that it's good enough in the sense of in the last 2 weeks, I've heard about 2 people that I know committing suicide. They were both male. And I honestly think that it's a case of people don't reach out because they're scared of what people are going to think of them. So I think there's a shift, but I still feel like we've got a long way to go.
You say that, and I can't even imagine what your families are going through. I can't even imagine what you were going through as their friends. And I think that you're right. There is a stigma. It's not enough and I think right now, Black men are particularly vulnerable right now when it comes to mental health issues.
Yes, they most definitely are. I mean, for me, it did hit me hard, but at the same time, it's shown me my growth because I'm at a point now that if I do catch myself feeling low or I'm starting to feel in a bad place, I now know how to open my mouth. And I think it's just become that you feel not even that you've got a responsibility, but if you can create that shift or you can help by just speaking up and saying, hey, I'm here, I have mental health, but I'm still getting by, it kind of will change that stigma. And that's the point that I feel like I'm at the moment for myself.
Okay. So let's go back a bit on your story because not a lot of people may not know that story about you. So you are, like you said, if people were judging you by your social media, you're a producer, you're out there doing, good work, you're producing content, you have books coming out, you're a model, you're doing all the things that on paper are ticking those boxes. But you had a secret that no one knew, that you had been suffering from depression for a while.
Yeah. Well, basically what happened with me was I was actually producing music videos for a company or with a company. And it was a case of I was working on big budget videos. I mean, 25 grand, 5 grand, like it varied. And no one knew how I felt. And it just got to a point where I just wanted to give up. I was done. I felt like there was no hope. I felt like I was disappointing everyone with everything I was doing. And I only had one friend that was able to kind of see what I was doing. And I made my mind up one day that I was like, you know what, I'm just done. I'm not doing this anymore. And I went home. Obviously, a load of things had happened. My house had been burgled twice. My biological father had passed away, even though he was estranged. It hit me hard. I'd had like a bad breakup and then got into another bad relationship with someone. And then it kind of culminated when my best friend's mum died, like a month after my father's passing of his anniversary, if that makes sense, his anniversary of his first death.
Right.
And she kind of disappeared. And at that point, I felt like my support system had disappeared as well. And the one last little thing that I'd been holding on to went out the window. And then I just got it into my head I was going to disappoint my son. And that was the one thing in my life I thought I really don't want to do. So I just thought it'd be better off if I wasn't here. He'd be better off if I wasn't here. And I sent messages out to my mum. She was in Barbados at the time and was like, Mum, I can't do this anymore. And my best friend, I just messaged her saying, I love you. My other best friend, I sent her a message saying, I can't do this anymore. And, but by the time I got home, she was sitting on my stairs and she basically said, I could see that you were spiraling, but I refuse to watch my best friend do something that's going to mean she's not here anymore.
Right.
So she looked after me for about 3 or 4 days. She asked me what I wanted to do. And that's when I kind of wrote the book, The Crit Run. It was the first one in a series of 5, which is going to be released next year. That's its own little journey because I tried to rush with business. And I think that was a learning curve in itself. But it just became, I started working on me. And it's been a long journey and I'm not 100% healed in the sense of, I feel like depression is something that's continuous. It's something you're always going to have things that are going to knock you in life, but it's learning how to cope and not become overwhelmed by it all.
You know, that's very powerful. And the fact that you're very open to admit the fact that you had gotten to a point where you said, enough is enough. I can't do this anymore. I want to check out. But you also had the foresight to actually reach out to friends and family, and you had people who were able to be there for you.
My friend apologized for breaking into my house and we laugh about it now. But in my head, I literally, that's why I think when I'm hearing about suicides or I hear about people who are attempting it, like 2 months ago, I interviewed a beautiful little girl and then I found out last week, Sunday, that she tried to commit suicide. And I sat there and I thought I was lucky in the sense of people saw the signs. They saw my spiral. And it's just, like I said, I feel like people like her, she's seeing someone like me and thinking, oh, yeah, it's perfect. No, it's not a perfect life. The only difference is, like I said, I've learned how to reach out at this point. And even when I did that, I didn't see it as reaching out. I saw it as me saying goodbye. I was saying my goodbyes to everyone. But like I said, my friend broke into my house and I'm just grateful that she recognized what was going on.
Well, you know what? That is a good friend to have, and I think we need more friends like that. You know, it's for people who don't know what mental health illnesses are like, for people who haven't experienced it. People think, well, depression must be, come on now, it's just a case of pull yourself together and get on with it, you'll be fine. What's the difference between I'm having a bad day and you know what, I can't actually cope, I'm actually depressed?
Do you know what? For me, and I've actually noticed signs in other people now as well. Like, obviously, I've got my friends, and usually when they stop answering their phones, they stop replying to messages, they're complaining they're tired all the time. Like, these are little things that as people, we think, oh, yeah, this is normal. But, and someone put it to me the other day, the same way we have good physical health is the same way we have good mental health. And usually there are signs there. When people start to shut down and they don't want to talk to someone, yes, you can be an introvert. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're depressed. However, I think, like I said, for me, I'm a social butterfly. I'm that person that I always used to like being out, and it became a battle to get me to want to do anything. So my whole behavior in myself changed. And even now, like I said, I can tell if that cycle's creeping up that I'm getting to that point where I don't want to go anywhere. And it's not I don't want to go anywhere because I'm tired or something like that. It's I don't want to go anywhere because I don't want to see anyone. And then it becomes you're forcing yourself to go out. And I think if you know yourself, and obviously a lot of it does come from having to know what you yourself are like, then you can notice those signs. But often when you're depressed, sometimes you don't even know it. It might be you read an article, or it might be you do one of them stupid little, what's them things, the little quizzes online where it's like, what's your mental health? And you kind of see it and it's like, oh. But then when you put that label on it, sometimes it can have the adverse effect for people that it actually makes them spiral deeper, because then it's like, how do I get out of that? And there can be tiny little things that you can do, but usually by the time someone's in it and they don't realise, it can become a battle, or it seems like a humongous task to get yourself out of that spiral. And it can only take the littlest things for you to come out, i.e. for me, I practice CBT, which is cognitive behavioural therapy. Mm-hmm. And it's literally just when I start to think negative thoughts, i.e., oh, I'm tired or I don't want to go out, I start thinking in my head, okay, instead of thinking I'm tired, I'm going to go to bed earlier tonight, I'm going to be well rested. Okay. And then it's just replacing those negative thoughts with positive ones. I learned about something recently called emotional freedom technique, and it's to do with tapping. So you tap on your pressure points, and as you're tapping on your pressure points, you're saying positive things out loud, and it's meant to realign like your mental, as in create things for you to focus on. And I just think little things like that can really help overcome, like I said, those negative thoughts. That's what depression is. You get into those negative thoughts, those negative cycles. You think it's never going to change.
You know what? That's actually quite good. And you've touched on something, is that you're actually able to recognize your own signs and symptoms. And, you know, with the practices of CBT, with the practices of tapping, and there's so many different things out there. So there's NLP, there's coaching, there's various types of therapy. What advice would you give mothers? What advice would you give friends to say, okay, how do you approach the conversation with a loved one? How do you approach that conversation saying, I need to talk to you. I'm not sure what's going on with you. Do you need to talk? Because people are not sure. And especially in our community, because this is not something we normally talk about. This is something that we kind of, for a better choice of words, cover it up and say it does not exist.
To be honest with you, I think it can be difficult because 9 times out of 10, and I know 9 times out of 10, and I know I was guilty of it, everyone will ask you, are you okay? And you're very quick to say yes, because you don't want to seem like you need help. You want to seem like you're Superwoman. But I think it's okay to recognize in this day and age that times have changed, lifestyles have changed, everything is very fast paced, and we've become very, I like to say, very selfish as human beings. That is always you're on the go, or it's you. And it doesn't take 2 minutes to send a message to a friend and say, hey, how are you? I mean, last Friday, I wasn't feeling great. I cried for half an hour in the morning. Now that was over a breakup, and it was like, okay. But at that point, I thought, you know what? It's time for me to be brave. And I just put a message on my Instagram, and I kind of said, hey, guys, like this morning, I was feeling really down. I cried for half an hour, but then I realized that I need to try not to do that and say thank you for the things that I'm grateful for. So I did a shout out for all the women that were around me at that point, or even on that day, that had spoken to me. And they might not have even realized that I wasn't feeling great in the morning, but I said thank you because, like I said, sometimes realigning yourself or being thankful rather than sitting there and wallowing in stuff can make you feel better. But the amount of people that messaged me afterwards and was like, oh my gosh, I'm calling you. Oh my gosh, I'm calling you. In my head, I thought it shouldn't have taken me to put that message up for you guys to actually bother to call. And I think that's what, I don't think that anyone's past that point of actually being able to do that. But I think a lot of people, because of, and I say it all the time, I think it's a culture in England. It makes you very dog eat dog. It makes you very selfish. We don't tend to care about other people because we're always worried about ourselves. But if you can actually be that person that, and I try and do it with my friends, and I make it a commitment now that at least once a week, I will make that phone call to my friends. And I'm a bugger. If I don't get you and you don't answer the phone and it's been a few days and I don't hear back from you, I will message you and be like, hey, hope you're all right. When you're not too busy, be really nice if you give me a call back. And it's not because I'm trying to come across as rude, but it's because I'm trying to remind them that we're better than this. We're better than having these selfish mentalities, because actually that one day you make that one phone call might be the day that you do stop someone from doing something stupid. It might be the day where you do make that person realize that actually, do you know what? There are other people out there that care about you. Because 9 times out of 10, when you have depression and you have to learn yourself, and that's the point that I'm at now, where as much as I've got my friends and I've got everyone around me, is teaching myself to be okay when I am alone now. Right. Because being alone is something that, like I said, I'm a social butterfly. So being alone is like, what do I do? And it's not even about distracting myself anymore, because I'm the queen of distraction. I can sit here and watch programs for days, but it's actually being able to be still in my own time and just be like, I'm okay. And like I said, that's when my mantras come into play, that I will sit there and I will be like, I'm okay. I've paid my rent. I've got a beautiful son. I did an interview last week. I've done this, I've done that. But just reminding yourself of all the positive things, because it's very easy to sit here and be like, oh, I'm single. Oh, my friends are too busy for me. Oh, I can't buy anything nice or whatever. But that's not going to change anything. However, if I sit here and I'm thankful for things, what it starts doing is it starts triggering things in my mind that, okay, I'm grateful I've paid my rent this week, but next week I want to pay my rent and be able to go and buy myself something nice.
Yes.
So then I'm setting myself targets. I'm setting myself goals rather than feeling like there is nothing better coming.
You know, I think that's actually very important, because you're actually setting up in your brain something else to focus on. And you mentioned something which is quite important, because you're talking about not just the mental state of mind that you have to be in to kind of shore up your own mental health, but you're talking about this whole idea of, you know, we need to check in, not just with ourselves, but with others. And you also spoke about the lifestyle of England being that everybody's so busy and wrapped up in ourselves. But also, do you think social media has a factor in this? Because we assume just because I have seen you on Twitter today and I've seen you on Insta and I've sent you a DM that we have connected. Do you think that that's in itself another problem?
Most definitely. I've literally become that person that if one of my friends DMs me, I'm not responding. You're my friend. You should be phoning me. And I literally think social media, especially, and I know so many people, Facebook, they will write a status on Facebook. They will assume someone is okay or someone's life is falling apart or whatever. And that is not, for me, it's not enough. I feel like social media has become, as much as it's a great marketing tool, I think it's just that. And it's created such a false facade of people. I went to an event last week and it was about self-confidence, and the guys that were in there, they're all younger than me. They was all 23, 24. But they was talking about the fact that because people see them with followers or see them living a certain life, that they literally think that everything is okay. Now, that is not the case, because no one puts their worst foot forward on social media. Hardly anyone does that, because then people sit there and be like, oh, what's wrong with her? Oh, she's complaining. It's like you feel ashamed to be honest about what's going on. And the reality is that not everything is perfect in everyone's life. These social media people you see even, they have bad days. Now, you might not see it and they might not choose to show it to you, but I'm sure bad things are actually happening. And I think until the ones that are at the top can show the good, the bad and the ugly, I think it does create that falsehood. And I do think it is very damaging to the younger generation that are coming up, because it's that false sense of you need to have that perfect life. And if you haven't, then there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, that in itself is a whole different conversation. And this idea where of course, we curate everything. We curate even our meals. So if we're taking a picture of that particular meal we're having, we're probably taking that shot 4 or 5 times to get that perfect guacamole to toast ratio. Of course, we're going to have to do that. It's the expected norm now. But however, the important part here is that no one is telling the whole story. It's like, it's a picture. That's all it is.
Literally.
And the problem with social media is that it's now becoming our go-to gospel. This is the gospel of living. And I think nothing displayed that more recently than the young woman who was a social media influencer having a certain lifestyle, and then things go wrong. And there's a GoFundMe page, and this is not to use it to mock her, because everybody can be in a certain situation, but it's to say sometimes it's not all roses. And I think you're absolutely right. We need to do the good, the bad, the ugly, and the truth as well. Yes. So we'll come back to this, because I do want to circle back to discussing more about mental health issues. And you spoke about your breakup recently, and and that brought me onto your boot camp that you have for women who are going through their own challenges and their own breakups. So what is the 10-day boot camp?
So basically, my breakup started last year. And that age-old thing of you don't let go of someone. But at the time, it was last August, it felt very, very final. And it just got me thinking about when we go for a bad time, like, what can we do? What could I do to kind of get over it? And at first, we get told, to get over someone, get under someone else and all of that kind of stuff. But I still think that's very damaging. And I think that you need time to heal.
Yes.
So I sat there and I just thought, do you know what? I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I just, again, set myself tasks. But then it became a bit bigger than just if you broke up with someone. And I met a girl last year that had Pott's disease. And I spoke to her and I was like, do you know what? I want you to join me. Now, she got a full-time job, so she wasn't able to. But I literally developed the program in a sense of, okay, I'm going to set 10 things over 10 days for women to do. Now, I started to record it last year, and I don't think I was at the right point, because I still think even when it comes to depression, or if it's a breakup or whatever it is, you need to be in the right headspace that it's actually going to work. Because more often than not, we rush things because it's like, oh, I want that quick fix. There isn't a quick fix. You've got to take time with certain things and allow yourself time to get over things. And I actually only recorded the first episode of Breakup Bootcamp last Friday. And like I said, it was after half an hour of me crying. And I was like, I don't even know if I want to put that out yet. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't crying at the time, but I was snotty. I was natural. My hair wasn't done. But I thought, I can sit here and I can be fake, or I can show the real realities. And no, it's not pretty. But what I'm trying to do, and what I actually did at the end of the video, was I said to everyone what I was going to do. And I said that I was going to be thankful. And I gave it as a task at the end of the video where I said, I want you to write down 10 things that you're actually thankful for. Now, the second part of Breakup Bootcamp for myself is what I will call circle time. And that will be a group of women, and we're going to go and see a psychologist. So I'm actually about to recruit for Breakup Bootcamp for any woman that's kind of going through a tough time to come with me, because one thing that I've always said, and one thing that I'm very passionate about, is women empowerment. Because I've said whenever I've been going through a tough time, and it's no offense to men, but it has always been women that have been my strength. So if I can sit down and I can get a group of women that we're all going through something, and it doesn't have to be a breakup. It could be you are trying to break up with depression. It could be you're trying to break up with the fact that maybe you've lost a job, or just anything that's going wrong. Come and sit with me. Let's get through this together, because 9 times out of 10, you need a support system. So we're going to do some things which might be a bit out there. I work in the creative world of, like I said, production. So I have wacky ideas with photo shoots, but putting a photo shoot day together, that we put ourselves in a position that we're doing something a little bit outside the box. Now, one of the things that I was depressed about when I was depressed was body image. And earlier this year, I did a photo shoot with 2 other women. One of the girls had body dysmorphia. One of the girls lost both of her parents. Now, we did a fun photo shoot in my house with a lingerie brand. We wasn't completely naked, but we just had a pillow fight. And it wasn't meant to be sleazy or anything like that. It was just 3 women having fun, taking amazing pictures. Now, after that day, the women that were on board literally thanked me, and they were like, Latoya, I had an amazing time. Thank you. And yeah, it's not a long-term fix, but for one day, I know I created a memory with those women that they will sit there and they will remember for the future. So even incorporating that they've got the momentum after the fact, I think creating those positive memories to replace the negative ones that we like to kind of get into that cycle of will help. So I'm hoping Breakup Bootcamp will be that thing where whilst we're going through a tough time, we're creating those positive memories that will help you set up the next chapter of your life.
I like it. I like the circle idea. It's something that is absolutely a passion of mine, because we are talkers. We heal through the words. As women, we do. I'm not saying every woman does the same way, but the more we talk, the more we find common ground with each other. So putting together circles to support women through their journey is purely inspired. So, yep, I am all for that. So how does a woman get in touch with you to get involved in the circle?
Well, Breakup Bootcamp right now, although I said I hate DMs from my friends, I actually do respond to DMs on my social media. So I'm about to put out a call to everyone, and I'm also going to be putting it out on Star now, which sounds a bit bizarre. However, what I've realised is, like I said, we like to put up this facade that everything's okay when genuinely it's not. So I'm putting it out on social media, and I'm just going to say tag a friend that's maybe going through a bad time, or like, if you know someone, DM me. And I want to start reaching out to women, because 9 times out of 10, we might not notice that we're going through a bad time, but our friends will always be that person that might highlight and be like, do you know what? This woman is amazing, but she's having a tough time. And I feel like this will actually help her. So I'm about to set up the Breakup Bootcamp page. I've actually got one on Instagram, but it hasn't got anything on it yet, because like I said, I needed to be ready to go through this. And I think I was in that space where I had to do my clear out, you know, where they say get rid of all the negativity around you to be ready for the journey myself, because we just spoke about people being fake. And I really don't, if I'm going to go through this, I want to go through this and not be a fake person. Whatever I'm living in the background, I want that to be what you see of me. And even with my social media right now, it's a lot of brands and whatever. But last week I changed it, and I don't like to say I suffer with depression. I like to say I'm a survivor of depression, and I survive it daily. So now it says survivor of depression on my Instagram. But I am going to start being a lot more honest about my actual personal journey of where I'm at, so that women do feel more open even to coming to me and being like, okay, this is her. She's walking her truth. Because no, it's not always going to be pretty, and it's not always going to be nice. But like I said, I feel like I'm at that point where I'm hearing about 18-year-olds that are trying to take their lives or are actually doing it. And I just, it's not sitting well with my spirit anymore. I can't sit here and act like that perfect person on social media when actually I'm going through it too. But we can go through this together and we can come out the other end. I suppose it's kind of like an AA for people with depression.
Oh, an AA for people with depression. That's an interesting thought. I do like the idea of the circle because it provides a space within a space to heal. And yes. I think more and more that's needed because the more we disconnect from the social media, the more we reconnect. I can't remember who said this, that we are the most connected age ever in the human race. We are so connected that we can reach out and literally communicate with somebody in Australia in real time, like we are next door. Yet we are also the most lonely.
Yes, we are. And I do think that's because of social media. And some people with depression will use social media as a tool because it means that they don't feel isolated. And it's that little you can hide from the realities of what's going on in your own life. But again, there's only so much or so long that that's actually going to quench that thirst. And even what I've said I like is with my son, I've noticed there's a shift, even in primary schools, that I went on a course with him recently and it was to prepare them for secondary school. But one of the things that they did was they had a mental health section or a well-being section where they were talking about things to start doing, i.e. connect, as in connecting with your friends in real life, going out, going to the park, not just sitting online and playing games. They had paying attention more to your environment because we're those people. And I said, I wish they had this for adults. Paying attention to when you're going out, looking around you. And last week I interviewed a man called David Ben David, and he owns a brand called Sprayground, and he's a creative. And when I interviewed him, he had me walking around Shoreditch with him. And he was literally, the reason we was walking is because he was taking everything in that was around us. And I just noticed that, like, that's how I used to be. And I used to think I was weird for doing it. But being around him, it was like, no, I'm not weird. And I'm that person that when I used to walk out, I would take a picture of a flower if I thought it was beautiful. But now we're just looking at pictures of flowers rather than realizing that they're actually around us. So, yeah, we are very disconnected from the realities are around us, the beauties that are around us, because we're so obsessed with watching the other people's realities rather than, like I said, appreciating what we have in our own.
Yeah, well, I'm actually finding it hard to actually articulate because you were actually touching on something that's actually, for me, particularly important because we live in a world and a time where we are so desensitized, we are so disconnected, and we are not actually being present. Now, before we actually went live, I was telling the story of how a young man almost walked into traffic in front of me.
Yes, you did.
For the simple fact that I did the mommy arm and put my arm in front of him, and he looked up. That was the only time he looked up from his phone, and he looked like he was about to take umbrage with me. And I'm like, no, dude, you're going to end up in front of someone's car. And that he realized he was about to be hit in traffic. And I was like, he was just totally oblivious.
Well, it goes further than that as well, because even with like a lot of the issues that are going on nowadays, which I won't touch on because we're not talking about that, but I've noticed that people will stand and record something rather than intervening now. And it's exactly what you just said. We've become desensitized, but it scares me because it's like I said, I have a 10-year-old and I would never want someone to stand and film him being beaten up or him in a fight rather than saying stop. But that's the way that the world is going.
Because the reality is everybody wants to go viral. Let's film this and it will go viral. That's somebody's life. That's somebody's child. And like you said, there's some things we will go into today. In fact, we have time. We had a question come in for you from Norman. Norman wants to know, when did you find positive thoughts were making a difference for you when you were alone?
Honestly, the last year. So, yeah, literally the last year. Now, my depression started in, I'm going to say 2012, 2013. But it's when I say positive thoughts the last year, because although I was someone that always would practice them, it didn't become part of my daily routine apart from, I would say, the last year. Because at that point, it was literally sink or swim. I could see I was getting back into those same cycles. I was starting to cry every day. I was starting to not want to leave my house. I didn't want to talk to my friends because I felt like every time I was speaking to them, I was complaining. Now, they would never make me feel bad for that. And they would say, Latoya, you're being silly, if I didn't want to talk to them. But just in myself, I didn't want to be a complainer. So what I started to shift towards doing was I would tell them a story if something had happened to me. However, I wouldn't complain. So I would get it off my chest, as in I would say what I needed to say about a situation, but I would never, what I would do before, i.e. if someone had done something bad, I would curse them out. I don't curse them out anymore. I'll tell the story. I'll let you know what happened, but then I will try and find the positive message from it. So I'm trying to think of something. For instance, like I said, last week, Friday, like I said, was crying. But instead of sitting there and wallowing, I got up and I thought, do you know what? You've got an interview. Be grateful that your career is actually going how you would like it to go right now. Be grateful that your son is happy. Be grateful that you've got food in your fridge. Because like I said, we get into that cycle where things could be a lot worse. Now, over the last year and a half, it has been something that when I wake up in the mornings, I will sit with my son and we will both sit there, and I've started including it into his routine from now because it's something I want you to grow up with. So we will sit there and we will say our prayers, but we will also, I've actually written on the back of his chalkboard his positive mantras. Be kind, be happy, be positive, be Antoine, because it's something that I want him to stick to and I want it to become mantras in his head. So yeah, I'd say the last year of my life, last year and a half, beginning of 2017, I've sat there and now I sit there and I think about at least 5 things, like I said, to be thankful for on a daily basis. And even if it's the same things, I don't care. I can be grateful for those same things every day. I used to laugh at my mum, which is really bad, when she used to say to me, just be grateful for being healthy. Thank God for being healthy. And I used to be like, well, I can thank God for being healthy, mum, but I'm still broke, or I'm still this, or I'm still that. And I would complain. But now when my mum says, thank God that you got there safely, I'm like, yes, mum, you're right. Doesn't matter if it took me 4.5 hours to drive to Birmingham, which is what happened the other day. I'm grateful that I got there on time. Yes. I'm grateful that my petrol lasted me those 4.5 hours. I'm grateful that I am now in Birmingham and I might be doing my makeup in the car because as a model, it's not always glamorous like you will see, but at least I've got here. So yes, the last year and a half, I would say.
Okay. I hope that answers your question, Norman. One of the things that, the practical aspect of what you're doing in NLP will say it's you're rewiring your brain for new information. And especially when we are not used to doing the mantras, the affirmations, these actually create new neural pathways for us to actually utilize to give us practical tools to use. And the quick thing is that our brain, as great as it is, cannot hold 2 emotions at the same time. You can't be grateful and angry at the same time. It's just not physically possible.
No, it's not. But like you just said, we create new neural pathways. And I think you're always going to have emotions. That's never, ever going to stop. And what I think I've become aware of is it's okay to have an emotion, because more often than not, people will make you feel bad for feeling sad for a day or feeling angry for a day or something like that. But one thing that I learned, and it was off of one of the young bloggers that I spoke about last week. And she said that it's okay to have a bad emotion, but what you need to do is remind yourself that it's only for that day. So she was the one that actually said to me, you're allowed to be upset, but you're only allowed to have that emotion for that evening. And by tomorrow, when you wake up, you start those mantras again, and you start being thankful again, and you let go of it. Because again, if you hold on to things, like you just said, we reprogram our brains to always go that negative route.
True. And also, you know, the flip side of the positivity junkies that we see on Instagram that continue to push that I am 24/7 positive, is that the flip side is there's no room for the reality of life to come in. And that young blogger is absolutely right when she says we need to feel those bad emotions sometimes because it's honest. We can't keep stuffing it down with the, you know, everything is okay. Because that in itself creates a whole different range of issues.
The problem with doing that, and why I think it can overwhelm you, because at some point, those feelings are all going to come to the surface. And when they do, if you are not a person, or if you're like me, it will overwhelm you. And that's literally, when I became depressed, that's what I was doing. I was an avoider. I would act like everything was okay, and I was not dealing with my emotions at all. So when they came flooding in, it took one person, and they literally said to me, I said to my wife the other day, well, Latoya's got this going on and that going on and that going on, and she doesn't complain. And I was like, wow, is that what my life looks like? And then I was like, wow, I haven't actually dealt with any of this stuff. And then it was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be here anymore. Whereas if I'd actually dealt with the death of my father, if I dealt with my house being burgled twice, rather than pushing everything down and being like, oh no, it's fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, it would have been a completely different situation. But like I said, we're often taught that we're not allowed to have emotion. And especially for Black women, I'm sorry, I will touch on it. We have an emotion and we get called angry. We get called over emotional. But actually, it's just an emotion, and I'm allowed to express it how I want to express it. And by not letting me express that emotion, it can be damaging.
Yes, and yes. But also that's not just the thing that damages us as Black women. And no apologies here because we're being very open and honest. What, in my estimation, as well, is the other detriment to Black women is the idea that we are these super, super strong creatures. The Black does not crack. You know, we are the women that hold up the world. We're strong. The strong Black woman trope that is actually killing us slowly each day.
Yes. And it is, to be honest with you, it amazes me because yes, Black women have got so much strength. But then when you're one of those women that you feel like, I'm not like that, it creates that negative cycle.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, I was one of those women that it was like, oh, I don't feel like I'm that strong. What's wrong with me? Actually, you are that strong. And it literally became me speaking to other Black women that it was like, oh, no, they feel like that too. I'm not alone.
But
it's okay.
That's the thing. You know, the strong Black woman stereotype is perpetrated. It's pushed out. And it actually impacts us to the point that we are disadvantaged because of it. That's where you have the fact that if you go and look at it and check out with medical situations, the Black woman is the least likely to have first response medical care in certain instances. When a Black woman is given birth, she's least likely the one to have the drugs to support her, because we are doing the strong Black woman to our own detriment. And when you look online, I love online. I love the social media. You get up and be counted. Be that woman that when the devil sees you, he runs away, and you're like, You know what? Today I am only about able to brush my teeth.
Yes.
You know I'm only about able to brush my teeth, and that's just it. And then you feel like there is something wrong with you.
Yes. And then, like we said, that's when that false image comes into play, that you feel like you have to look like this perfect woman, that if I don't have everything together, oh my gosh, everyone's gonna know.
Yeah, everyone's gonna know. Everyone's gonna know that you are a fraud. Everyone's gonna know that you're not perfect. Well, screw it. Nobody is perfect.
And that's literally, like I said, the point where recently I've realized this perfection that everyone thinks does not exist. Everyone has bad things happen to them. And I'm sorry, if people want to sit there and say it doesn't, then I'd really like to know what world you're living in, because like I said, there's always going to be, yeah, exactly. There's always going to be bad things. But until we start speaking out about those bad things and saying, do you know what? Today my toilet broke and it was a nightmare. And I had to pour the mop bucket into the toilet. It's not glamorous, but at the same time, things are going to happen. However, I can be upset about it, or I can choose to, okay, my toilet's broken, I'm going to get it fixed. And this is what I'm saying. But even sometimes talking about having a broken toilet, oh, well, why doesn't she have money to get it fixed straight away? Because no one's perfect. And actually, in an instance like me, it's finding time to be at home for that person to come and fix my toilet. Do you get what I mean? Even we do it with our cars, we do it with our houses. And like you just said, it's that image that we have to be perfect. We have to have everything together. But the more and more women that I'm around recently, I'm realizing that none of them have got it together 100%. Even the ones that are doing well are still having bad days.
You see, I think there needs to be like a day that we come out and have the real pictures on social media. We need this is me real day, not this is me trying to do the filter of no makeup, which I've just kind of applied a little something here and there so I can look like I have no makeup, but I won't tell nobody if you don't.
Listen, Lillian, I am literally that person now. I will get up in the morning sometimes, and on my Instagram story, I got my headscarf on with no makeup. Because you know what? As much as I'm a model, this is me minus the makeup. This is what I look like in the morning. And if you don't like it, you do not have to follow me. But what it will do is make those other young black girls that are out there that are following me realize it's okay to put a headscarf on. It's okay to not put that filter on social media. It's okay to not look perfect at all times. Because again, we've got a generation of children coming up. And I was reading the magazine the other day, and I think it said the 18 to 29-year-olds, 72% of them are using filters nowadays. To the point that when you meet them in real life, they look nothing like what they actually look like.
Oh, wow.
Why are we doing that? Because we're trying to create that false perfect image. Now, for me, there is nothing wrong with makeup. I love a bit of makeup. However, that is not what I do every day.
Right.
Because you know what? I'm me, and it shouldn't be that you have to see me with makeup to accept me. Because whether I've got makeup on or whether I haven't, Latoya Lovell is still the same person. It was so bad at one point, I didn't even want people to know what I looked like. That's why when I first started out, it was a book. Because in my head, I didn't want people to know who I was or what I looked like. It was about my message. Now, I've realized that obviously being pretty isn't a bad thing, because that's how I used to feel. But at the same time, it's about showing the realities of, yes, I get a spot. Look at my big spot on my face now. Yes, I've got bags under my eyes today because I didn't get a peaceful sleep last night. But it's showing those realities, because sometimes when we do that, the first thing people do is, oh my gosh, did you see her today? She looks like a mess. Alicia Keys, I applauded her when she went to that award show and didn't put a scrap of makeup on, because You know what? It opened doors for other women to go out and be natural. But what happened when she did that? Did we salute her? Did we
Oh, of course not.
champion her? No. Oh my gosh, Alicia Keys went out. Did you see her eyebrows? She could have at least done her eyebrows. Are you kidding me? Because there is a 15-year-old little girl out there that now might walk out without makeup on and not feel self-conscious about it, because you know what? The person that she idolizes, the Alicia Keys of the world, the Tyra Banks of the world who have done it, the Cardi B's now of the world who have done it, they've gone out, they put those pictures up on social media of, like you said, no makeup, no filter. That is okay. This is what I look like normally. So yeah, you can see me glamorous and you can see me looking all great, but this is me on a normal day-to-day as well. And that's okay.
And exactly, we have to get back to being okay, to being seen for who we are as we are. I think that's actually very important, and when we start thinking of women who are doing things that are working to help other people be comfortable in their own skin, we think about all the work that you're doing. So, we haven't touched on all of your work yet, because you're, like we said, you're an author, you have your books coming out next year, you have the Melanin series, which
yes,
for both men and women, and we haven't even gotten into yet. But before we kind of segue back into those things, let's have your So Loud moment of the week.
So my So Loud moment of the week is going to go to the young blogger that I was talking about, Jordan Rianne. She has taught me with cyberbullying, like I said, because she's a beautiful young girl. She still gets cyberbullied. She was the one that told me about only holding on to it for one night and letting it go. I went and watched her at a self-confidence talk last week, and she was the one that said about social media being fake. She was the one that highlighted that even though she's got 130,000 followers on Instagram, the fact that she'll walk into auditions and she's still too dark. And the reason why I love her is because she is breaking down doors, not just for her generation, but for our generation, the older generation, and for the younger generation. So she is definitely my So Loud moment of the week.
Oh, that's absolutely awesome. And I think that level of championing deserves a huge round of applause over here. So, when we get back into the work that you do, what is the Melanin series?
The Melanin series I wrote last year when my grandmother passed away. One thing I've realised is writing really makes me feel better. So because I realised she wasn't going to be here when my book was released, I decided to write the Melanin series. And it literally was, I sat there and I was watching Maya Angelou and I thought, I'm doing things, but I don't feel like what I'm doing is actually reaching anyone right now. What could I do right now that I could just put out there if I wanted to? And I just sat and I wrote Dear Melanin Woman, and it literally touched on hair, it touched on colour. And when I originally wrote it, it was dedicated to, I actually called it Dear Black Woman.
Right.
And I was part of a mastermind group at the time, and I read it to them, and the guy who was in charge of the mastermind group said to me, a lot of the issues you're talking about aren't just in the Black community. They're in the Asian community. Like, they're the biggest buyers of bleaching products. They're in the Chinese community. They're in the Indian community. So he was like, why don't you call it melanin? Because everyone's got melanin in their skin, but as a whole, it's still going to be dedicated to Black people, because the issues you're talking about and who's going to identify with you are going to be Black women. So I renamed it Dear Melanin Woman, and I sat there and I wrote it. But then I wrote the one to women, and I realised I had stuff to say to little girls. So I did Dear Melanin Girl, I did Dear Melanin Boy, and then I knew I wanted to write Dear Melanin Man, but I never knew how I wanted to approach it. I didn't know if I wanted to approach it from the viewpoint of, am I writing how a man feels? But then recently, because of, like I said, the breakup I went through, and I've been speaking to a lot of women about how they feel about Black men specifically, it became like my reach out to men of what we need from them as a community again. And I only finished Dear Melanin Man last weekend, to be honest with you. I sat for the whole day playing the same beat over and over and over. And I poured my heart out. And then I kind of sat there and thought, okay, what bits do I want to keep in it? What bits do I not? And then I contacted my producer and I said to him, look, Jordan, I'm ready to come into the studio. I'm ready to record Dear Melanin Man now. And it's kind of like my love letter to melanin men, in a sense of, no, we haven't given up on you. And we're just as guilty as you are, because as much as we like to say Black men will criticize Black women, we do exactly the same. So it's me just trying to say to them, look, we need to find a way to come together again and get rid of these differences that are making us speak badly of each other, that makes other people think that it's acceptable to speak badly of us. Because what happened last year, before I even wrote the poetry, was my son experienced racism in the space of 2 months twice at school. And I thought in my head, what negative cycles are we repeating that a 10-year-old little girl has said to my son that he is Black, she is white, Black people are white people's slaves, so he has to pick something up off the floor. And I thought, if we're not careful...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, exactly. And Lillian, as much as I would like to say that was an isolated incident, last Saturday, I was at my cousin's house and her neighbour knocked on the door and literally said, the children weren't being good English children, take them back to where they come from. Now, I'm someone that, like I said, I'm trying to be positive and I'm trying to follow the right steps. So I said to my cousin, listen, don't react. Let's phone the police, because it's racial.
Yes.
The police phoned her on Sunday and told her they didn't think it was racist. So I see a society that we live in. I kind of knew that was going to happen. I know what society we live in the sense of it's very hidden and it's very much a taboo subject. But like I said, as a Black woman and as someone that's got a son, and I see the struggle of, like I said, my ex, what he was going through, trying to get a job, what me as an educated Black female, as they would like to call me, who's been to university and done all of that, that is the whole reason I had to go the entrepreneurial route. It got so bad the other day that one of my friends said to me, Latoya, if you want to get part-time work, change your name on your CV. Why in 2018 do I need to change my name to start getting responses from employers? Now, sadly, I did it and it worked. But I thought, if we don't start speaking up on these issues, if we don't start trying to champion certain things, what is my son going to grow up into?
Exactly. And, you know, I can't even imagine what your son would have, how he would have felt at that statement. But you've said the bit about changing your name on your CV actually kind of reminds me what I read a few months ago, where the transracial lady decided that she's going to change her name because her name is, you know, what her name is. And she's now picking a Nigerian name to put on her CV because she'll be more able to get jobs. And I'm thinking, yeah, I don't think this is going to work out the way you think.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak on transracial stuff because I didn't, someone joked about this with me the other day, but I didn't actually think it was a thing. I didn't think it had happened yet, to be honest.
Well, there is one case out there of somebody living her life transracially.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard about the woman that's had the melanin injections. And she's actually, there's a woman out there and she's had melanin injections, and to the point where she even thinks it's now changing the texture of her hair. So yes, it does exist. To be honest, I sit there sometimes and I think, I don't know why. Like, it is hard being a black woman. So I salute you if you want to join us and try and join our battle, to be honest, because it's not easy.
Oh, yes, the transracial conversation, and it's funny, but we won't delve too far into it. The reason why I brought that up is the issue of the name. Now, my last name is very much a Nigerian name.
Yeah.
And I've had that conversation as well. And my only response to anybody is that if you can say Abramovich, you can say Obogo.
And that's the problem nowadays. Like, my name, for me, Latoya Lovell, everyone hears it and everyone loves it. But on a application form, they're clearly not loving it, because I've had recruitment consultants galore look at my CV and say they don't understand why I'm not getting jobs. The minute I changed my name to Lottie, and again, it's appalling, I changed it to Lottie Lovell. And I started hearing back. I started getting callbacks. And I sat there. But even to Monday, I spoke to my cousin about an event that I'm having, and I'm speaking to people about sponsorship at the moment. And I said to him, is this really this bad because I'm black, or am I imagining it? And he said, no, cuz it's true. He filled out, and I'm yet to do this, so I need to go and research it myself. But he was doing his car insurance the other day, and he put in all his details with his name. And then he said he did the same thing, but he changed his name to Simon Collins, and the quote came in £900 cheaper. So people can sit there and people can say that racism isn't there or it's not going on. But last week, Saturday, my son had to hear again someone saying he wasn't being a good English child. Someone saying go back to Jamaica, and we're not even from Jamaica, but okay. Someone then cursing my cousin out. Last year, hearing what he heard. And the only reason I feel like my son is able to get through these things is because, like I said, I am that person that I teach him that, you know what, Antoine, regardless of all of this, you are kind, you are caring, you are loving. He does modelling and acting. It happens in that world. And it's like, it's always going to be there, but it's teaching him to not let it affect him.
And that's the only thing you can do. So,
yes.
I think we need to discuss about getting you back on the show and for us to continue this conversation. And we'll talk more about the circles. We'll talk more about your upcoming book. But before we let you go tonight, we need to know how women can contact you, not just for the circle, how we can reach out to you. In fact, I'm going to circle back to that question. My one single question for you before we wrap up this evening is, with everything you're doing, everything that you have on your plate, and being, as you put it, a depression survivor, what is your number one tip for yourself on taking care of yourself? What is your well-being practice?
Being thankful. Like I said, now I sit down every morning before I even exit my bed or brush my teeth, and I will say 5 things that I am thankful for. And the same thing in the evening when I get home. Before I go to sleep, I will sit down and I will say 5 things that I am thankful for. And that is literally kept me refocused and kept me, like I like to think, with the positive vibrations, with the reprogramming of my brain, that even when I'm having a bad evening, and yes, you're allowed to be upset, like I said, but giving myself those 5 thankful things means that those are the last 5 thoughts that I'm thinking before I go to bed, rather than the negative energy. In the morning when I wake up and I start my day, I'm already thankful before I've even stepped out my door. So that's what I would say, be thankful. More than anything else, we can always get bogged down with negativity, but being thankful will help.
Okay. And that is actually a wrap. Thank you so much. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Lillian.
You're welcome. How can ladies and men that want to reach out and talk, how can they reach you?
On my social medias, at Latoya, Latoya, Lovell, but I've missed out the E and one of the L's, so it's Lovl. So it's Lavell. Toyalovl. Latoya Lovell.
Okay. All right. So, folks, it's that time, and thank you for joining us. If you have enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Hop onto iTunes, give us a 5-star review. If you want to find out more about our past guests, go onto the website shineoutloud.tv, and you will get all the past replays and catch us same time, same place next week. It's been fun. Good night.
You've been listening to the Shine Out Loud Show. If you want to connect with us or let us know what you thought of today's show, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Shine Out Show.